So, good morning, ma'am. This is my presentation in GE 105, 104, course titled The Contemporary World and Purposive Communication. Activity title, Advertisement, Residency Quezon, DITE. So, women's rights. Women's rights are human rights. We are all entitled to human rights. These include the right to live free from violence and discrimination, to enjoy the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health, to be educated, to own property, to vote, and to earn equal wage. But across the globe, many women and girls still face discrimination on the basis of sex and gender. Gender inequality underpins many problems, which disproportionately affect women and girls, such as domestic and sexual violence, lower pay, lack of access to education, and inadequate health care. For many years, women's rights movements have fought hard to address this inequality, campaigning to change laws or taking to the streets to demand their rights are respected. And new movements have flourished in the digital age, such as the hashtag #MeToo campaign, which highlights the prevalence of gender-based violence and sexual harassment. Through research, advocacy, and campaigning, Amnesty International pressures the people in power to respect women's rights. On this page, we look at the story of women's rights. What women's rights actually are and what Amnesty is doing. Women's suffrage during the 19th and early 20th centuries, people began to agitate for the right of women to vote. In 1893, New Zealand became the first country to give women the right to vote on a national level. This movement grew to spread all around the world, and thanks to the efforts of everyone involved in this struggle. Today, women's suffrage is a right under the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, 1979. However, despite these developments, there are still many places around the world where it is very difficult for women to exercise this right. Take Syria, for example, where women have been effectively cut off from political engagement, including the ongoing peace process. In Pakistan, although voting is a constitutional right in some areas, women have been effectively prohibited from voting due to powerful figures in their communities using patriarchal local customs to bar them from going to the polls. Sexual and reproductive rights. Everyone should be able to make decisions about their own body. Every woman and girl has sexual and reproductive rights. This means they are entitled to equal access to health services like contraception and safe abortions, to choose if, when, and who they marry, and to decide if they want to have children, and if so, how many, when and with who. Women should able to live without fear to gender-based violence, including rape and other sexual violence, female genital mutilation, forced marriage, forced pregnancy, forced abortion, or forced sterilization. Workplace discrimination. Often, women are the subject of gender-based discrimination in the workplace. One way of illustrating this is to look at the gender pay gap. Equal pay for the same work is a human right, but time and again, women are denied access to a fair and equal wage. Recent figures show that women currently earn roughly 77% of what men earn for the same work. This leads to a lifetime of financial disparity for women, prevents them from fully exercising independence, and means an increased risk of poverty in later life. Human rights. Human trafficking. Human trafficking is a multi-billion dollar for of international organized crime, constitu- constituting modern day slavery, just a commodity for criminals. Victims of trafficking or are merely a commodity that can be used and even sold for financial gain. There is a total disregard for human dignity and rights. Human trafficking involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sex act. Traffickers might use violence, manipulation, or false promises of well-paying jobs or romantic relationships to lure victims into trafficking situations. Sexual exploitation. According to the report, the most common form of human trafficking, 79%, is sexual exploitation. The victims of sexual exploitation are predominantly women and girls. Surprisingly, in 30% of the countries which provided information on the gender of traffickers, women make up the largest proportion of traffickers. In the United States, it most prevalent in Texas, Florida, New York, and California. Human trafficking is both a domestic and global crime, with victims trafficked within their own country, the neighboring countries, and between continents. Victims of trafficking can be of any age and any gender. Human traffickers frequently move their victims from city to city, forcing victims to engage in commercial sex at truck stops along the way. Both brothels disguised as massage businesses are also sometimes present at or near truck stops. These networks control women through confinement and complicated debt bondage schemes. Traffickers use trains, buses, planes, and ships to transport victims, hiding them in plain sight. Transportation industry employees are uniquely positioned as the eyes and ears on the highways, public transportation systems, and in the air. And thank you.